We're back here on ctntworld.com, and we are getting the amazing story of Tricia St. John, a survivor of domestic violence and domestic abuse. For those of you who aren't aware, something very tragic occurred in 2004 in Tricia's life. On the night of April the 2nd, 2004, Tricia was attacked by her then common-law husband. She had at that time escaped from the home of abuse, and he found her where she was. He had hunted her down and decided that he would exact revenge upon her for having the audacity to leave him. Tricia?
On April the 2nd, 2004, I was standing in the road talking on my phone, my cell phone, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't expect that he would attack me with a cutlass. I saw him coming down the road behind me, walking, coming, and he was dressed as if he was going out. And when he got right up under me, directly behind me, he pulled the cutlass from the waist of his pants and started chopping me with it. I remember screaming. I know I screamed. And I know I screamed. The scream was when I saw, and I hope this is not too horrible to say on TV, but the scream was when I saw my hand, my left lying on the ground. That is when I screamed.
He completely severed your left arm.
Yes.
For the benefit of our viewers, Tricia, not to disrespect you in any way, but I think it's important for people to see, what domestic violence looks like. You're wearing an outfit today that is revealing some of the scars. It must have been very difficult for you to get to the point where you'd be able to do that. And of course, you're not wearing a prosthesis so that people can plainly see. Can you just hold out your arms a bit like this? So in addition to severing your left arm from just before the elbow, you also had damage done to your right arm as well.
Yes.
You lost how many fingers?
2.
You lost 2 fingers?
Yes.
Because you decided you didn't want to be abused anymore?
Yes, actually when I left him, when he attacked me, it was 4 years after I had left him. And I guess that is why perhaps I didn't expect that he would do something this horrible.
So he chopped off your arm, and when you realized what had happened, it was at the moment you saw your arm lying in the road.
I remember.
What happened then?
I remember running in by the neighbor, and I ran in by her and I fell down right on the ground in front of her gallery, and he came after me, and he was chopping at me still. And then the neighbor came outside, and when she came outside, she came out into the gallery, and he ran off. I remember her saying, in 2009, when the case was going on, I remember her saying the reason why she came outside is because it was sounding like if somebody was chopping meat in the front of the yard. The sound of the... And that's why she came outside. When he ran off, I remember I got up and I walked around to the back of her yard, because I was thinking that if I got to the back of the yard, even if he passed back, he wouldn't see me in the back of the yard. And I was walking to the back of the yard, and there was something warm spraying on my face from on the left side. And even though I knew, because I had seen it on the ground, when I looked, that was when it really, I guess, became a reality. And I went to the back of the yard and I sat there. And I was sitting there and I was looking at my blood running down in the drain while we were waiting for the ambulance. And I remember my neighbor asking me if I wanted to lie down. But I was afraid to move because I thought that if I moved, all the parts of me would go rolling down the drain. Now, that doesn't seem to make any sense. But then I thought that if I so much as shifted, I'd lose my whole self all the way down the drain.
Tricia spent a month in hospital recovering from her injuries, and it was during that time that she got the inspiration to write her first book about her experiences, Me Before Me, Now Me. We have on set with us psychologist Daryl Joseph. Daryl, thanks for being a part of it today. Is this a story that you've heard on more than one occasion with more than one person who would have come to you?
Well, first of all, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And Tricia, thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
Okay.
I wish I could say that this story is entirely unique and that you don't hear it. Unfortunately, you do hear it. The circumstances may be somewhat different, but the actual sequence of events and the end result is more common than we really, it's common. It's common. It does happen. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it does happen, but I suppose we will get to that point. But just to say that it's not as I said, the severity of damage in this instance may be more severe than normal, but it does happen.
Now, when Tricia was giving us her story, I asked her, was there any sign that may have been a red flag that you missed? And she said, yes, there were signs. And she talked about the psychological chopping that was taking place years before. Let's explore that for a bit.
There's several different kinds of abuse, and people need to understand this. The first type of abuse that a victim will receive normally is not physical. It usually gets to physical. But there are several different types, and we talk about emotional abuse, putting down your feelings, invalidating your own opinion about things, your feelings, tampering with your self-esteem, trying to put you down and make you feel less of a person than you actually are. There can be spiritual abuse, where a person tampers with your beliefs and your value systems. You have a particular standard, and they try to make you believe that your standard is inadequate in some way, or that it should be replaced by their standard. Okay, so there is and of course there's also mental abuse, where your ideas, your thoughts about things, call you stupid and insult you and tell you all sorts of things to make you think that you're not a sensible, clear-thinking person yourself. So all of these types of abuse usually take place before the physical sets in. Now, there are signs that a person can see, but the problem with those signs are in a relationship. When you put in let's call it the romance, okay, and the excitement, the chemistry that comes along with it, those signs can be frequently mistaken for signs of love.
Okay. We want to invite our viewers to call in and also add their stories and even ask their questions. You can call us at 622-4141 extension 4. That's 622-4141 extension 4. Also, feel free to email us at questions@ctntworld.com. That's questions@ctntworld.com. You can also text in to us. Just text HELP, leave a space, type HELP, leave a space, type your question or comment, and then send everything to 4913 to be a part of the discussion this evening. Now, Tricia, one of the other things that you talked about was the fact that it started after, much of the physical abuse began after your first son.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines very quickly. We've got Beetham Gardens on the line. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hi,
Yes.
calling in connection with your program. It is so interesting that I'm actually tuned in.
Thank you.
Basically, I want to say hi to the psychologist himself as well.
Hi.
And hi, I really look forward to your program from time to time. So basically what I'm calling for briefly is that when you talk about the spiritual abuse, the part where they try to take away your belief system and stuff like that, I am presently a survivor of mental, emotional abuse, minus the physical. I have to say thank God. Because of the signs that were there from the emotional and the put me down, the self-esteem, all these things, I was able to come out of it because of verbal threats and attacks and stuff like that. And I want to encourage the young lady on this program, sometimes they need to see things in the natural for what it is. And by looking at her example, it's a great encouragement for us to realize we do not have to wait till the physical happens. But needless to say, sometimes we want to come out of the physical, but because of certain circumstances, we may be there for a while. But be encouraged that God is on your side and that you are doing a good job. To the panel, and especially on behalf of women like myself and otherwise, we don't have to always, as I said, experience the physical part, but the emotional, the mental, that is the type that they try to weigh you down with and break you down and make you small and take away your self-esteem. So needless to say, I am a survivor in that instance, minus the physical, and kudos to the lady by name and to the psychologist and to you, Jessie, for the interesting program.
Thank you so much, Beetham Gardens.
Thank you.
Tricia, you were telling us your story, how things became horrible after you gave birth to a child for this person. When you were telling us that story again, how were you feeling, reliving those horrific moments? It doesn't get better with time, does it?
No, not really. Not really. The only thing that was eliminated from talking about it is in the first instance, I used to feel like if I lie down in an ant's patch, and ants crawling all over my skin, and that's about the only thing that has gone so far.
Okay. I think we've got someone else on the line. Tabaki, thank you for holding. Go ahead, please.
Pleasant evening to you, Ms. Bento.
Good evening.
Good evening to the Miss St. John and to the guide and the officer there. First of all, let me say this is a beautiful program, and I welcome it. A question that I want to pose to the guide, the counselor. Can you tell me whether or not, if it is true, if a gentleman saw his father beating his wife, somewhere along the line in the relationship, it tends to play off? Because I believe 99.9% of the time, sometimes if they see the mother being beaten up on, and sometime later down in the relationship, can you tell me if this happens in relationship as the men grow older and sometimes that confront them and they didn't have anybody to deal with that situation, so now as they get married and they are in a relationship, sometimes they act it out. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tabaki. Daryl.
Yes. People learn by experience. Okay, so you see your parents, your caregivers, interacting in a particular way with a lot of animosity, a lot of anger and so on, and that sort of imprints upon your mind as to the way that you two should behave in a relationship.
In her books, Tricia talks about the fact that she was abused in front of her children. Mm-hmm. How did that affect them?
To be perfectly honest, I've seen it now. I've seen it now in the way they're acting out. I've seen it now in the loudness. I've seen it now in when they're upset and the talking about arguing about what upset them. They would slam the door, push aside the chair. I've seen it in ways like that. Now, when they were younger, they got counseling from the Mount Hope Child Guidance Clinic. Personally, I think they need more counseling. I talk to them as much as I can, and well, that's it so far.
Daryl, is part of that continued rage that Tricia's children feel, is it because there is such a visible reminder of what their father did to their mother?
Yeah, it certainly would be worse because of that, because there's a constant reminder of it. But the damage really is done at the point in time when the violent behavior is observed. There's just so much to understand about what goes on in those first 4 to 5 years of a child's life. But whatever they experience, whatever they witness at that point in time, that has a very central role in shaping the kind of person that they turn out to be and the way that they process and deal with situations. So just alluding to the question before, the caller had before, you know, there is a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth that if a child grows up in an environment where they are seeing, for example, daddy abusing mommy and insulting her and actually hitting and being physically violent towards her, it does something to sort of train his own mind as to how to handle adversity. It may not necessarily come out in the normal day-to-day, because very often persons who commit domestic abuse, they appear to be very calm and very normal to the average person. They go to work and they hang out and they have friends and they're cool. But when it comes to situations where there's adversity, where there's a conflict or something like that, and they have to resolve the conflict, that is when you see that imprinted behavior actually coming out very often. We
are in with the psychologist Daryl Joseph and the domestic abuse survivor and author Tricia St. John. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more of your calls, your texts and your emails as we focus on domestic violence, domestic abuse on today's edition of ctntworld.com. Welcome back to ctntworld.com here at CTV. The spotlight is on domestic violence this evening, and we encourage you to email us your stories. Email us at questions@ctntworld.com. Text us your comments, your questions. Just type help, leave a space, type your message, and then send everything to 4913. You can also call in and speak with our guests at 622-4141, extension 4. We have in with us Daryl Joseph, a psychologist, and we also have Tricia St. John, an amazing survivor of domestic violence and domestic abuse. Folks, we've been getting text messages coming in, and one person pointing to the fact that their mother was a victim, and they used the word victim, I guess, deliberately, because perhaps she did not survive of domestic violence because of financial dependency on the father. We also have a question about alcohol abuse, if it plays a significant role in domestic abuse. And Tricia, was alcohol a factor in your relationship?
When I first met him, he used to drink a lot. And then I told him if he wanted to be around me, he had to stop drinking. And he stopped in as much as he stopped coming home drunk or tight. And he stopped coming home with alcohol on his breath. But that didn't mean he stopped. But he stopped to an extent where I was comfortable. Well, I thought I was comfortable.
We're going to take a quick break and come back with more of your calls, texts, and also comments from our psychologist. Don't go far. We're back here on ctntworld.com, where the focus is on domestic violence and domestic abuse. And we've got a couple callers who want to jump in the conversation. Good evening. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Yes, good evening.
I would just like to say the program is very nice, and I would like to know who or where I could go to, because I'm currently in one of those situations.
Okay, thank you, caller. Let's take another caller very, very quickly. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. You're on the air.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm calling from Irkutsk.
Yes.
My name is Alana, and what I would want to know is that me and my husband have been married for 3 years, right? And we have a baby girl together, and we often have a lot of arguments. We hurt each other physically and emotionally, right? And whenever we have an argument, he always threatens to leave me and go to his mother. He always calls his brothers and sisters into our arguments, and, you know, he always gets bad advice out of it. And I would like to know, like, what do we do to help our marriage? Okay, Alana, I think we're gonna need you to hold on the line so that someone will be able to take your information and you can get the advice that you need. But very quickly, Daryl, responding to those callers, where to get help?
Okay, there are a number of national agencies set up to deal with domestic abuse, child abuse, and so on. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I know there's a domestic violence hotline that persons can call.
800-SAVE.
800-SAVE. All right, good. So that's a good place to start. Other than that, there are a number of persons, psychologists, counselors, social workers, and so on, that can be reached. Okay, Tricia. Someone asked the question, is it possible to get into a relationship again? Is it possible to trust again? Or are you forever locked in fear? What would you tell that person?
It is possible, but it takes a long time. And in terms of the person who is seeking your affections, they have to work hard at it. They have to be genuine, and they have to not be pushy. Like, they meet you, they talk, and they're not, well, be in a relationship, you know, that kind of way. They have to be more subtle and very understanding of your moods, because sometimes the moods just come, and sometimes the moods just come when the person didn't do anything. But sometimes they may say something and maybe the inflection of in their tone may take you back. And then sometimes the moods come and they have to understand and be patient.
So, Daryl, this person needs to know how to woo and be gentle and be prepared for moments of regression.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. There are a lot of skills. I mean, okay, we can't answer every question in 30 seconds, right? There are some skills that need time to develop, to acquire and develop and so on. And in those instances, that's where you need someone who can guide you and assist you in being able to do that. The last caller who was talking about their situation where they handle conflict in a very non-productive manner. Conflict can be handled in productive manners, but sometimes it takes that guidance and that assistance to learn how to do that.
To all those callers who were trying to get into the show, we're so sorry that we weren't able to take your calls, but please continue calling the station. Someone will take your information and we'll be able to pass on information as to where you can get help and the support that you need. Guests, thank you for being a part of the show today, Daryl Joseph and Tricia St. John. Tricia St. John, are you in love now?
Yes.
It's possible.
Yes.
Okay.
It's wonderful.
On that beautiful note, we're going to wrap up today's edition of ctntworld.com. Tomorrow, the women take over the show. And up next, we've got a major news bulletin from our CNews Center.